Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Bird, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. And Roger, a wonderful show coming our way today. Michael Beard, the longtime head coach at Pepperdine, a coach of the year, a national champion, will be joining us shortly. Certainly would love to pick his brain on the state of junior golf and where he believes ultimately recruiting and junior golf is heading. But, a lot to look forward to, a lot to get into. Certainly the spring season of college golf is underway. The new year of junior golf is underway. Some monster tournaments coming up. It's interesting time of year. So many players, and rightfully so, take the holidays off just a little bit, some family time over December into January. What did you always think the best way after some time off to kind of get that fresh start? You know, the blisters are coming. What was always your approach after a little bit of a layoff to ramp things back up?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Ryan, it was all about getting my physical body ready to go, right? I mean, it's one thing to be in the gym. It's another thing to swing the golf club multiple times in a day in a round or practice session. So it was really important for me to kind of just ramp myself back up, start with, 20, 30, 40 swings, in practice sessions and building myself back up from that. So to try to avoid some of those blisters early on when you're starting out, that you don't want to knock yourself out of practice time with all the blisters on your hands. So learn something over time that, it doesn't take long to get back on the bicycle if you've done all the right things up to that point, right? I mean, again, if you're physically moving well, mentally in the right state. So all of those things are so important, I think, getting back into it.
Now, for a right-handed golfer, most players wear a glove on their left hand. And if you're left-handed, wear it on the right hand. There are a couple players over time that were two-glove kind of guys. Tommy Gainey, immediately comes to mind. But when those blisters do happen after some time off and you go at it hard and the blisters happen, whether they break or they're bloody or however it is, is there a go-to? Is it a Band-Aid? Is it adhesive tape? What do you think? Because I mean, a lot of people listening are no one really knows what the best approach is. Is there in your mind?
I don't know if there's a best approach other than making sure it doesn't get infected. Sure. So put some Neosporin on it. But I would say one of the go-tos for me was tape, getting some, gauze and putting it under some tape and making sure it's ready to go. I mean, listen, we all as athletes, love to have that badge of honor that we put in the work and it shows. So there was a little bit of honor in making sure you have a little bit of that there too. So.
And with that said, we welcome in the 2020 National Coach of the Year, 2021 National Champion Head Coach at Pepperdine, Michael Beard. And Coach, thanks so much for joining us. We were just discussing, players do take a little time off over the holidays, certainly spend a little family time. And I know your guys getting back on campus and back at it. Certainly they were practicing over the holidays, but when there is a little break as a coach, do you like that for the mental side of just, it's always go, 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 especially at the Pepperdine level where, I mean, these players are some of the best players in the world. Their minds are always focused on golf. Where are you at on just taking the end of December, early part of January to clear the head just a bit?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think it's great. I think that it depends also where you're from and where you're used to. I mean, we've had players from, the Midwest and they're used to that time where they can kind of reset and refocus. And then you've had kids from Southern California and they never take a break, so I think it's just kind of what you're used to. I will say it does. I can see the difference when guys do take the whole break. We end of middle of December and we come back maybe the second week in January, and I can tell when they come back and they haven't done anything, and the vice versa. When they're playing tournaments, you could tell they're just a lot sharper. So they eventually get to the same point. It's just they may need a week or so of kind of sharpening up. But I think it's great. I think that the game is it beats you up, and I think that all the time, and I think any time where you can kind of reset, refocus, sometimes that's even more valuable than just hitting balls and practicing.
Yeah, Coach, you said something there. The game beats you up, and what are some of the things that you would recommend to some of the young players who are striving to be, maybe a Pepperdine alum at some point, right? But what would you say to those young players out there that's going through this process, tournament wise, but then how do they reset?
I think playing different sports, you hear that a lot, but I think playing other sports is a good thing. I think at a young age, I have an 11 and a 14-year-old now, and at a young age, if you don't kind of commit to one sport, you feel like you're getting passed up in that. Let's say golf. You play my boys play golf and football or flag football, and they love flag football. But it's like if they totally focused on golf, they'd probably be further along than where they are now. But I think in the long run, this is it's better to maybe throw in another sport or two. But it can be a little discouraging to see, these, if you focus on that one sport, you kind of getting past. And so I would try to do your best to think from a long-term perspective. And I think having that sport is a way to, another sport is a way to kind of reset, and because you're still competing, but you're not like, it's a different competing, it's a different grind. And so that's what I would recommend. Let's
talk a little bit about the college process coming back from the holidays. You mentioned you'll have players that, took that time off and played a lot of amateur or pro events to stay sharp. And if, the reality is if they were in warm weather climates or live on a golf course when they're at home, they're probably practicing even more than they do when they're at college, just because there's no other distractions compared to someone that might be from the Northwest or the North or Midwest that just didn't have that same opportunity over the holiday. How quickly do you guys get to qualifying? We all understand that really we're 2 weeks away from the start of the very important spring season. Most teams go back first week of February with actual tournament play. How quickly do you tell those guys, all right, here we go, that it matters now?
Yeah, I'd say the first week of school when they get back is practice time, getting back into, playing with the guys, and definitely a little bit more relaxed. I mean, we do some structured practice during that time, but it's not full competitive mode every day. And I would say the second week is when we get back into qualifying. And that's mainly because we can, other schools can't. And so I just feel like it's important to always be competing. And that's also why we start our first tournament of the spring is we actually host the Southwestern Invitational at the end of the month. So we play, the 28th is our practice round for our first season. So our first event of the year. So I want them. We're qualifying starting, I'd say, this week. This week is kind of that second week, with maybe the 17th ish is when we're starting to play for, scores that count.
Yeah, that matter. Yeah. So, Coach, one of the things that we talk about a lot with our guest here on the show, obviously, this show is all about trying to help parents and young golfers understand this process. Yeah. What's it like to play for you at Pepperdine? What would it be like if I was interested in playing for you?
Yeah, every program's different, so it's not going to be the same. We may play similar tournaments and we may have similar schedules as far as day to day, but the relationship you have with the coach and kind of how they run their program can be different and across the board. And I'd say for us, I'd say that we're a heavy golf program, and obviously everyone's got a golf, but we're heavy. Like, we go deep with our guys as far as on an elite level as far as tournament play, and kind of basically what those guys are doing on the PGA Tour, and we try to approach that from a golf perspective that way. Like, we try to have every one of our kids that we recruit have those aspirations to play the PGA Tour, so we coach them that way. And so I would say that would be a way to describe how I am from a golf perspective. I would say from a relational side, I really enjoy getting to the point where the player can trust you as just as a mentor, or just as a friend even, but mostly as a mentor and a coach, where they can share things other than golf with you. And so I think it's important to get to know each player on that level. A lot of the successes that we've had in the past is great players. I mean, amazing players, and have found ways to continue to improve their golf skill. But I would say a lot of it stems from kind of having that relationship with them, where they can share things that would affect their golf in life stuff that affects their golf, And so, I would say, I hope that makes sense. But from approach it from a PGA Tour, hey, this is where we're trying to get to, so we're going to coach them that way. And then on a relational standpoint, we really get to that point where we talk about real things and get to the level where they really feel like that no matter what, we have their back.
Coach, it sounds like you have a very safe environment for these young men to become young men. And I think that's one of the things that I think most people would strive, or as a parent, I would love for my son. And I know, Ryan, as your son's out playing college golf right now too, that sounds great, right? I mean, they have aspirations of being something that's very unique, a best player in the world, but they're in an environment, it sounds like, that you've created, that you're helping them become good men in a safe environment. They can trust you, so therefore they play their best golf.
For sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Coach, was it always like that at Pepperdine? This is your 12th season. We understand now you where the standard is, what you've built. How have you changed? How has that changed at Pepperdine from when you took over 12 years ago? Was it still immediately your first year that I'm trying to win the national championship this year, or was there program growth that you've changed as a coach as your expectation has changed?
That's a great question, and I hope I don't get too long, so cut me off if I get rambling here. But I love it because we've obviously put so much into this, and so you got to see it before it happens. You've got to find a way to instill that into your players too. And so I'd say when we first started, I'd go back to even when I played here. I'm an alum here, and I played here, and we always felt like this was a special place. I always felt like this was a special place, and it could be amazing. And so when I came back to coach, I brought that perspective, or that belief into building the program that it is now. I mean, we've had success in the past, so I don't want to take that away. But at the time, we were in a tough kind of we were in a downward spot. I mean, we were ranked at 150th, or somewhere between 100 and 150, depending on when you looked. And so we had a lot of work to do. And so we went after those top kids when I first started, and we struck out on a lot of them. And but that was the approach. If we're going to be great, we've got to get the best players. And as we started to where I grew was realizing that it isn't necessarily about the very best players to get this thing going in the right direction. We've got to get the players that fit the coaches. We connect with those players, and obviously they have to have talent and be really, great players. But it's more about getting the right dynamic, the right. I just felt like if we got the right players, personality wise, that even though they weren't the very elite in their class, they would end up getting there if they were in the right environment. And so that's how we built it. I'd say one of the there was a lot of players that had an important role, but one that really kind of got us going the right direction was having Saheth Thigala. He was a basically, he might have been the second recruit that I had got here when I got the job, and he really he had a big impact on really helping with identifying and establishing the culture. And not only did he pulled people along with him; they bought in. It was a combined effort with Clay and Josh and Roy and Saheth and these guys. But you need the players to really help you. It can't all be the coach. So I feel very fortunate to have those guys. And as we continue to get better, that it was like we would reach a new level and we would stay there, and that was our new standard. And then we would win a tournament, and we almost like, okay, we're this good, and that was our new standard. So it was kind of a gradual process, but we couldn't have done it without the players. And then as we started to get better, then other players started to see that maybe we got something going here, and so without that core group at the beginning, I don't think we could have done it. I mean, so many players we've had has had an impact on this thing, and so I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I mean, I will say one thing that I've learned, I'd say in the last few years, is to don't really assume or assume anything from the players, meaning like just make sure that they know that you love them and that you're in it with them. Don't just assume it. And so I've really tried to change or remind myself that spend some time with them individually spending time with them individually isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, no doubt. And it doesn't hurt. I mean, I was just out visiting Pepperdine last summer with my daughter. It doesn't hurt the location, the weather. I mean, it's a pretty amazing environment that you guys have out there. And obviously you created on the golf side, for the practice and them to go and spend a lot of time to develop.
Yeah, no doubt. It's amazing. And again, that's why I think my heart's been here since I went to school here, in a way that, like, I feel like it could be super special, and it is super special. And it's more than just the golf, the school and the people here. I'd say, I mean, everyone talks about the view and the weather, but the people are the best thing about this place.
Let's talk a little bit about recruiting, a little bit about junior golf, a little bit about coaching kids. And what I want to start with is from parents is my son or daughter is the most amazing player you've ever seen. They're probably the best ball striker you've ever seen at any level, but they get in a tournament and they just can't score because the pressure's too high. So I preface it, Coach, with I'm not sure how good the swing is or not good. Generally good swings and hold up under pressure, but is there something for kids that can handle pressure, and is that something you can coach? Is there such a case of someone that struggled with pressure that was able to overcome it and then become great?
That's a great question. Yes, I do think that there is hope for that person that struggles with pressure. I do think that we all feel the pressure. It's more of how do we what do we do when it comes, when it comes in, and how do we respond to it? So I actually just about 10 days ago, Saheth was in town and we played, and I got to spend the day with him, and here he is, a top 25 player in the world now, and I've known him for a long time and know him really well, and I straight up asked him, so how many shots in a round when you're out there do you have like fear, over the ball? And because I think we get in this, I know we're talking about juniors, but I think we get in this idea that we see these guys on TV shooting a gazillion under par, making millions, that they've got it all figured out. And it's just not the case, you know. And he says, I probably have 5 or 6 shots where I'm fearful over the ball. And maybe it was more last year and more the year before that. Maybe he's getting better at it, but there's still like, what do you do when the fear comes in? And so that's where I feel like that can be worked on. And I think that the best way to do it is to be able to be okay to be vulnerable and talk about what you're going through and talk about what it feels like when you can't feel the club because your hands are shaking so much, or you're thinking about, I'm going to make a double or a triple. Like, you got to talk about that stuff. So, and you got to have someone that you can trust to feel okay with that, you know, feel okay with saying that I don't have it all together. And so, yeah, I think you can improve on it. I think it'll probably always be there. I mean, you hear Tiger even talk about, you know, him being nervous on first tee shots and, you know, stuff like that. And he's the best player in the world, you know, or ever lived. So, I mean, it's there. Don't pretend like, don't try to like think about that. I just want to get to the point where it's not there, because it's always going to be there, and accept it, embrace it. And it's like no matter what you do with it, rather than kind of trying to get it to go away.
Yeah, that's great information there for a lot of young players and old players. Ryan, I think there is hope for us. Coach, one of the things that we hear a lot about as well is like, okay, how are practices at the schools that I'm looking at or interested in, or what's it like? Is it challenging? Is it easy? Is it on my own? What are some of the things that you do to help these young players coming in from a practice perspective and understanding how to practice? Maybe they don't know how to practice, and what's a good practice look like?
Sure. Well, I'd say every year is a little different depending on the group that we have. So it's not a total, you know, set in stone structure. This is how we do it. I think depending on how many players we have really impacts that. So, I would say, but there are some things that we stay true no matter what kind of group we have. So I would say that, you know, one of the things that we do a lot of short game work. We don't necessarily, I mean, I would say we have 5 days a week where we have team practice. So it's not like an individual go on your own and we'll see you at qualifying or we'll see you at tournaments. Like, we get in there with the guys and we've got eyes on them every day. We're only allowed to do 20 hours a week. So you split that over 5 days, and you get workouts in there as well. And so I'd say that we have a place on campus we would go at least once a week. The other days we go to the courses and practice there. And then we also mix qualifying in there. So one of the things that we do that Coach Zambri, Chris Zambri really helped us with is we'll do a lot of like testing. So we'll test, we have like ball striking tests, we have putting tests, we have you know, how well you know your yardage tests, you know. So we do these things that not every day, but we try to do as often as we can. Usually each test is 20 minutes, so it's not a big deal. Maybe we do two or 3 a practice. Mm-hmm. And so now we can't do that during qualifying, so we try to do as much as we can, where even if the guys have a half hour, an hour in between class, we go down on campus, test real quick, go back up to practice or class. So it just helps us with a little bit of structure. It helps us kind of see where their games are at. You kind of get some feedback and get some work in with, you know, trying to be as efficient as we can with the time we have, basically. And so we do a lot of short game work as well. And our guys like to play a lot, you know, so it's kind of a combination of those types of things. You know, we'll do a lot of like chipping competitions where you feel like you're just competing, but you're actually learning and getting better on with technique as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, but that's where we do a little bit of a mix of everything. So it's not heavy one way or the other. And they'll have the weekends off where they can go do their own thing too. So it's not like totally, hey, you got to do it our way. A lot of times, we'll just do it, like I said, a little of this testing, maybe half of practice, and then they, kind of do what they want the other half.
Coach, let's get a little bit into recruiting and your philosophies. Certainly everyone that is listened for the first 20 minutes, they want to know what is the key to getting recruited? Is there such a thing as a key to getting recruited? What are you looking for from said junior golfer to pop onto your screen and make that first cut, if you will, of maybe 100 kids or 50 kids or whatever that first number is at whatever grade that is, where you have the largest list of people that you're going to start to look at?
So that's exactly right. I mean, we start with about 100, in the class, and kind of weed through maybe even 150, and then we kind of read through to see, recruiting a lot is timing too. I mean, a lot of people don't talk about the timing in recruiting. It's especially now where the rules don't allow us to talk to them until after their sophomore year. In the past, you get them on campus and kind of maybe develop some sort of relationship, or starting that process a little bit sooner. And so now, with not really being able to talk to them until June 15th after their sophomore year, it's I'll be honest, it's kind of, I don't really like it, because it's a mad rush. In that summer, you're trying to figure out if they're good fits, and so you start with 150. Hopefully by June 15th you have maybe 50, and then now you're making these calls, you're trying to get to know them. It's just kind of all over the place a little bit. So I think ultimately, for us, I'd say, again, Pepperdine's kind of like a niche, program in school. So that helps us a little, I guess. But I'd say if we can get it down to 20 per class is what our goal is. And then we kind of get to know those 20 or 25. How do you get there? Obviously, the beginning part, the scores is probably the biggest way we kind of get in that top 100. But man, it's not all score for me. I mean, it's more than that. That's why it takes me a little bit longer, because I want to get to know the family and the player. So if I'm purely going off score, then yeah, I can kind of weed through that pretty quickly and probably get down to 20 if I'm purely going off score. But I like to try to go a little bit deeper than just that. And so, I'd say communication, with even though we can't respond, sending emails, maybe making it a little bit more personal too, and not just a mass email that you're going to send every coach, is important. I'd say, finding ways to play in our area where, like if you have 150 and you're trying to narrow down, you're probably, it'd be nice to get some eyes on you early. And I don't know, I just think that the visits and getting to know the player and the parents is such a big part of it for us. And so it's hard for me to say, hey, without knowing you, if you're in or out, and so that's why that June 15th time is a little bit of a crazy time for me and us. So I would just hang in there, because sometimes what happens is you go through the June 15th till, let's say, the fall of that year, and a lot of the top kids end up committing, and then now you got a group of that next tier, and you're trying to, and now everything's kind of calmed down. So sometimes if you don't freak out that at the beginning part, if you hang in there, you actually have a lot more opportunity than what it feels like, in that summertime or beginning of the fall, because you don't always get your top kid either.
A lot of good advice there, Ryan. That's going to share with our audience there, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a scary process for everyone. Certainly, the June 15th is it is now a day that every parent and player, and in your case, coach, has circled. And certainly, uh, it does appear that on June 15th, the good players are going to get 2 million emails from every coach in America, so to speak. But, it is that process. And I think, the one thing we do here on this podcast is we try to give our kids, our families an advantage. And certainly, emailing and at least getting on the coach's radar. So on June 15th, you can have that introductory call. But I found the key point there was interesting because recruiting budgets in golf are obviously it's not football. And let's be honest, and in for the Power 5 schools. But you mentioned a kid coming and playing in your neck of the woods. If there's a tournament in the college that you're interested in your case, it's Pepperdine. There's obviously quite a few golf tournaments, junior events that kids could play in. But if they're able to get on that 150 radar after June 15th, if they play and you're there, are they allowed to come up and talk to you, introduce themselves again, say, hey, we emailed each other, this is who I am? Like, I think a lot of people are always worried about what are the rules.
Sure. Yeah. So, yes, you can come up and introduce, you can introduce, but that's about it. Up until August 1st is when, well, not about, up until August 1st is when you can actually have a contact off campus. So now we'd have to count it, and it would have to be like I could talk to the parents while you're playing after August 1st. So, but you can still come up and make an introduction and say, hey, don't know if you got my emails, nice to meet you, whatever. And I can do the same. And so that's always okay. You just can't you can't take it any further. You can't say, oh, I know so-and-so that, oh yeah, that kind of stuff. It gets a little, well, you just can't do it. Sometimes I've been maybe accused of just being rude because I have to get out of the conversation and stop because right. you just can't. You'd be breaking the rule. So I try to just say, hey, rules don't allow us to talk other than an introduction. But then when August 1st comes around, you can. Yeah, we could meet, and like I said, off campus is totally fine. You can then take a visit starting August 1st. At that point, I wonder down the road if they're going to blend those, if they're going to make that June 15th and August 1st the same. I don't know, yeah. But I guess it gives you time to kind of evaluate and set up those visits. But because you couldn't communicate with them prior to June 15th to set up a visit. But yes, you can introduce yourself, and then not until August 1st can you actually have a conversation.
Coach, real quick, top 3 things that you would advice you would give to a young player looking to come to Pepperdine or anywhere else. What top 3 things come to mind?
I'd say not in any order. These are just popping in my head. Number 1, not in any order, but 1 would be play with someone better than you at home. So it's nice to have buddies to play with, but man, if you could find a way to play with a kid that's already in school and playing college golf, or even if you could, this would be the best, would be a tour player. If they play in your area, find a way to reach out to them and practice and play with them, see what they do. That would be 1. I'd say got to work on your short game. No matter what, as good as you think it is, it can be better. And just try to find new shots around the greens that you can do. You'll be that much more ahead of other players your age once you get to school, because you'll be forced to learn it at some point. And if you could just kind of work on that now, it would really help that process. And then the last one, I'd say, compete, just compete as much as you can. And it just seems like you learn stuff, not just to it doesn't matter what you're playing, just compete, playing everything you can. You learn stuff about yourself. Find someone you can be transparent with and honest with. Find someone that, one of the things I'll say, and this is probably a fourth one, but one of the things that I think is huge, and I see the development, the pace of the development go so much faster if you can have someone that you can analyze and go over each tournament round with, like that knows the game, knows that has played at a level that you want to be at, or that knows, not just a swing coach, not just your parents, someone that like you can really go a deep dive into like elite amateur golf or pro golf with. That's what I would do, is just because you can learn so much. It's not all about just what you shoot. You can learn so much if you're talking to the right person after a competitive round. So that's what I would say.
Good advice.
That is really spectacular. That is, I could see our junior golf families writing those down one by one. And the last one really struck for me. I mean, that is playing with someone better than you, or someone that has done it at a high level, to just see how they operate is that's the first time we've heard it here from, and we've had the Mount Rushmore of coaches, which you're obviously on, Coach. So
Sure.
that was wonderful advice.
Yeah.
So we thank you so much for your time today. We know it's a busy time of year. You guys, you play on the 28th. So the spring season is here. It's exciting. And thanks so much for joining Roger and I today.
You bet. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks,
Have
Michael.
a great day.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks so much. Talk soon.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And certainly, Roger, that did not disappoint. Great guest by you. That was as informationally sound as really any of the guests we've had. I love that last bit of information. I love the idea, because I think so many kids practice with a parent riding in the car, or always watching over them, or a buddy. And the chances are that the buddy is not going to be as good as they are, just because we know how tough golf is. And if you're watching this podcast, it's because you have a child that's likely excelling at the sport. So great advice there, Roger. I'll give you the last word. I mean, this was pretty sound.
Yeah, I mean, what more could I say, Ryan? I mean, Coach Beard covered so much there that I thought, from a parent perspective, a player's perspective, they could learn a lot from just those few things that he just said. Those last four things that he highlighted there are spectacular. But I will say one last thing. I love the environment that he's trying to create for his players there. You can hear it. You can feel his passion for and his love for the players, of creating an environment that's safe, conducive for them to be their best, right? It's not just what happens on the golf course that matters. Yeah,
there's no doubt. And it's interesting from when he started to where he is. I mean, they are a perennial power now. There's no doubt about that. They absolutely are loaded just about each and every year. So that is going to do it for the Hub of Junior Golf podcast. We hope you enjoyed Coach Beard. Each and every podcast, we have a special guest that really brings you, the junior golfer, parent, player, on the other side of the curtain, if you will, a bit of a cheat code on how to get ultimately your game to the next level. So be sure to check as we are dropping podcasts fast and furious in 2024. For Roger Nick, producer, director Michael Nick, I'm Ryan Burr saying until next time, this is the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast.